Hey everybody, Brian Von Vier here, back at it again with another set of D&D whoa, these aren't stories. This is just a collection of unpopular D&D opinions. Mine is this. I don't think pre-built campaign books are any fun to run. Custom campaigns with original worlds and lore are much better for me and my group. I don't normally enjoy running pre-written adventures, but I love stealing things from them. I don't think your opinion is as unpopular as you think it is. Today I learned that
if you fail to save, you should behave as though you believe the illusion.
Is unpopular. Seemed pretty uncontroversial to me. Personally, I have a lot of fun using the pre-built dungeons, and the pre-built adventures give me good starting points for a campaign. The hardest part for me is starting a campaign. They give me a nice and easy cop-in that I can work off of. There isn't enough of a difference between different melee weapons beside weight and damage. There's no reason to pick up a sickle when I could just as easily use a dagger. Dark vision is stupidly prevalent. It should be the exception rather than the norm. Druids having the actual requirement to see an actual beast in the wilds to take its wild shape. Yet polymorph casters don't have this limitation. They can turn into any beast they've never even heard of before. T-Rex or Mosasaur, anyone? It's an annoying rule oversight, and annoying for moon druids. Travel challenges are fun. Fight me, wizards. Players should be doing a lot more than just showing up at game time. They should all be paying close attention, taking notes, remembering important NPCs and story points, and preparing their combat turn well ahead of their actual turn. If the DM asks for clarification on a spell you're casting, you should be able to immediately answer. Same with any of your abilities. You should be making as much effort to engage with the other party members as the DM, etc. TLDR, don't show up expecting to be mindlessly entertained. I don't like games with too many people. I think games with over 5 people are way too chaotic, and then nothing ever gets done during them. I'm also just bad with people, so it could be that. I love roleplay, and it's important to me that it's in games I participate in, but I need at least one combat per session. And a more difficult combat is way better. Not every combat has to be a potential TPK, but expending resources and a couple tense moments is good for the soul. I only run homebrew because there's always someone at the table who knows the lore of published campaign settings better than me. And it gets awkward, at the least, when the fact becomes apparent. Nobody knows my world better than me. That the DM is at the mercy of the PCs and vice versa. The dynamics shift all the time when you least expect it. If either doesn't recognize this, you're going to have a bad time. Counterspell and Dispel magic work fine as written, and DMs that decide to change them mid-campaign because spellcasters start becoming prevalent later on shouldn't get mad at being counterspelled. If the party comes up with some ridiculous scheme to trivialize or avoid the big bad evil guy fight, you shouldn't change it to avoid or nullify their plan. Instead, reward them for their hard work and creativity. Rangers are cool. Hey, I'm a dwarf ranger. I actually stand with this one. The narrative that role-playing and following the rules of the game are opposite ends of a spectrum is bullshit that has been invented and pushed by people who either can't be bothered to learn the rules or who get really salty whenever the rules don't let them have their way. If you're not going to take the time to learn your spells and take spells that you think you'll need that day, i.e. trying to anticipate what spells you'll need, play a sorcerer, don't play a wizard. This may not technically be unpopular on a grander scale, but among some groups I've DM'd, people were upset when I awarded XP for avoiding combat encounters. Personally, if you're able to avoid a fight, you've beaten the fight. Granted, you don't get to loot a corpse, but you also get to not risk your life, and you, depending on how you avoided the fight, save resources. I cannot stand any version of, my character is X, but thinks they're Y. Whether it's a halfling who thinks they're a dwarf or a warlock who thinks they're a cleric, I have never found a build like this to be entertaining in the slightest. Copper and silver should be more used in the game. I just don't see a point in silver and copper after about 5th level in the games I run, and it could be useless well before that in other games. Like, who is going to buy a legendary item or artifact for that amount of gold? I couldn't imagine buying the Staff of the Magi, for example, and I wouldn't put it in my game unless a player I was running for really wanted to buy it instead of finding it, stealing it, or winning it off a big bad evil guy. Some people shouldn't play the game at all. It brings out the worst in them, regardless whether they enjoy playing or not. For non-spellcasters, 5th edition is, compared to 4th edition, a step back in character variation in terms of combat techniques. Most unpopular D&D opinions are actually popular. There's my unpopular D&D opinion. I really dislike the Warlock and think it's mostly a one-trick pony spelled Eldritch Blast. In my campaign, I reworked the mechanics of the Warlock so that it gains spell slots cumulatively and regains them on a long rest. That means the Warlock doesn't immediately run out of spell slots. Players that don't participate or put in effort in the campaign don't get to have their shining moments or anything special happen with their characters. Raw is always good. It gives you a baseline for the rules without needing to ask the DM for everything. I like milestone leveling more than XP leveling when I DM a campaign. I don't normally run games with random encounters, so for the longest time, I would calculate what levels everyone should be and how much XP everyone should have. Then I thought, if I'm going to map out what levels everyone should be, why don't I just cut out all the math and just level them up whenever I plan to? In addition to this, I kind of felt like players would get fixated on XP and would get into more of a video game grind for levels type mindset. I found that with Milestone, you can do some story or character stuff to flavor leveling up. At the end of the day, Milestone just worked better for the way I run campaigns. The general community seems to push down people who like to optimize build and elevate acting out your character. Role-playing is different from doing voices and such. It's playing as the character, which can mean optimizing plays. An obnoxious player is obnoxious because of how they play, not their style. I think players should be putting in at least as much effort as the DM. If they expect the DM to act and do voices and stuff, hey, the player should do the same. There is more onus on the players for game enjoyment than the DM. My unpopular D&D opinion. The game should be converted into metric. Nope, no. Learning even a fraction of the full D&D lore is basically impossible and pointless. There are tons of situations where it completely contradicts itself in the same book, let alone across multiple editions. And if you manage to learn all the lore, then congratulations! You've now spoiled every non-homebrew game and taken out all the fun twists and surprises. I have 2 unpopular opinions, not about tabletop games, but the actual tabletop. Number 1. Cup holders are stupid for game tables. It's a weird complaint. Number 2. Game tables with fancy narrow edges and large felt playing surfaces are not practical. Edit to explain. Ooh, I'm excited. Cup holders are useful if you are playing on a sailboat in 12-foot seas. Otherwise, they take up valuable space that could be used for the myriad of gear players bring. The same goes for pre-cut dice trays. It locks up table space. Players need room to configure their station, and it will vary wildly between them. Again, narrow edges remove player space. Some other board games and systems have a lot of trinkets, cards, pieces, tokens, and other things that will go on the playing surface. In those cases, the player has little to no personal gear. That works out. But for D&D, there is a lot of player gear. A narrow edge that looks like a Vegas craps table takes away all that room. Remember the failed company, Table of Ultimate Gaming? Their premium design took away the player space and turned around and sold accessories that would attach to the side of the table. Need a place for your drink? Here's a cute wine glass holder. No room for your tablet? Here's a tablet holding accessory. Come on, man. If you have a felt playing surface, sure, keep the drink somewhere else. But do you really need a felt playing surface? Can you get the same effect with a removable surface? A multi-purpose surface? Interchangeable? I have no problem with felt surfaces, it's the usual combination of felt surfaces with narrow edges that becomes a problem. In the several years since I've made my game table flat 4x7, I've only had one spill. It was quickly cleaned up, minis and surface were dried, and we kept playing. Even if books or character sheets get wet, in my opinion, they are not designed to stay pristine. We write notes, highlight, erratize, dog ear, and heavily use these. My old player's handbook from 1st edition had so much use I had to laminate the cover. The other 80% of the time, my table is used for meals, homework, crafting, parties, holidays, and gatherings. Imagine a classy Christmas family dinner at a table with cup holders. If you're going to make a table, please don't add cup holders or dice trays. Let your players decide how to configure their own station. Hey everyone, Brian Von Vrier here, checking in after the vid. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and to ring that bell to get notified whenever we post a new video or go live. And if you'd like to share your unpopular D&D opinion, you can do so here in the comments below, or more so on our subreddit r/MrRipper. Using a little bit of a help action, you can come over and say hi to our secondary channel, Riptovia, or come over to my channel, Brian Von Vrier, on YouTube or Twitch, where we all have different content that you will certainly appreciate. You can find links in the description below. As always, I try to end things on a positive note, and I just wanted to say one thing. Remember, the world is built on happy accidents, on mistakes, on things that you do right and things that you do wrong. You're not always going to be perfect, and to strive for that is foolish. Always be happy knowing that you made a mistake and that you learned something from it. If you don't learn something from it, hey, keep looking at that mistake that you made until you do. Because you're going to be fine in the end anyway. Don't overthink things, don't worry about things, just be yourself, and you will be okay. All the love, everybody. Stay positive, stay happy, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.